In this video, I'm going to be talking about troubleshooting your FM radio station. I'm also going to be sharing with you some tips and tricks that I've learned over my time as a broadcast engineer. I'm Marcos O'Rourke. I've been a broadcast engineer for over 20 years in the Los Angeles area. So I've learned a few things in that time, and I want to help bring that information to you and kind of expose the behind the scenes of broadcast engineering. So the first thing we want to do with troubleshooting is look at the big picture. See the whole view of your air chain. I'm a very visual person, so diagramming it out really helps me kind of understand where I need to look at things. And we want to go through from the start to the end, from the time the audio is created to the time it comes off of that antenna. So once we have our diagram, like I said, we'll start from the beginning and work our way to the end. Sometimes you can cut straight to the middle based on answering some basic questions. So many times you'll get a panicked phone call from somebody on staff at the station or management, "We're off the air." And the first question that I've always asked has been, is it silent or is it static? Because the answer to that question is going to really point you in a direction. Let's take silent as our scenario for this discussion. In my experience, there's been basically two big things that have caused a silent situation. The first being an automation problem, and the second being public internet delivery of your audio through your STL. So, many radio stations today are playing audio out of a computer system, an automation system. And it's literally just basically a computer with a playlist, essentially like iTunes, but it has a whole bunch of other features that it has. Routing, switching, metadata, blah, 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 blah. Outside the scope of this video. But, needless to say, automation system is what plays out the audio typically. And the simplest problem that I've seen is that the automation system is left in a manual mode. In an automatic mode, it goes down that playlist and plays the next thing after the other. In a manual mode, it will play one thing and stop, waiting for operator intervention. And when that operator intervention doesn't happen, then it just sits there because it's assuming the operator's going to be doing something. So it's meant for like live assist or a live talk, where a music will play and then it'll stop, and then the air talent will be sitting there, they'll turn on their mic and they'll be saying, "Hey, this is B107 or whatever it is." And then when they're done talking, they start the next element, put it back in automatic, and then it continues to play on. Now, what I have seen happen is an air talent putting it in manual, doing their break, starting the next element, like a song or whatever, grabbing their stuff, and walking out the door of the studio, forgetting to put the automation system back into automatic. So they're out the door, they're already in their car, they're already halfway down the block. That song ends, and the automation system, doing what it's supposed to, goes, "Okay, I played the audio, waiting for the operator to do something." Meanwhile, you're now off the air, you're silent. So that's one of them. That's like 90% of the time that I've experienced that's the issue. Now, the next simplest thing is that the automation system, which is literally usually just a Windows program running on a Windows machine, it crashes. It happens. It's Windows. Thanks, Windows. And don't even get me started about Windows updates. Windows updates. So, another possibility is that if the automation system comes up on a console, that the channels on the console are turned off. I've seen that happen as well. These are things to check. Or it's not routed to their STL or something to that effect. Here's a fun one for you. Every third song is silent. Well, to me, that says your automation system has 3 outputs, and that third output is turned off on the console. I've seen that happen. It happened. Button gets bumped, something happens. You turn off something that's next to it that you think you turned off, but end up turning off the automation channel on the console. That happens. It's frustrating, I know. The second most common failure mode that I've seen is on the STL, the studio to transmitter link. And typically that is something that goes through the public internet. That's where 90% of, if not more, of the failures have happened. Now, the internet is great. It's easy, it's cheap, it's a great way of getting your audio from the studio to the transmitter. However, the way the internet works is that it takes your packets of data and it could go from, let's take Los Angeles, for example, and go to Denver or Austin, all the way back to Los Angeles. That's not exactly optimum, but it could happen. And anywhere along that path, there are several routers and switches in the way. And any one of those could send your packets off into a different realm, different land, a different whatever. And you have that type of failure. So public internet is not the best thing for your primary studio to transmitter link. If you're using a single internet connection for your delivery, it's always good to have two if you're going to be using the internet. And another thing is some codecs may not automatically reconnect. They're supposed to. Many of them are supposed to, but that's also something to check. You know, okay, log in. Your automation system's running, audio's getting to the STL at the studio side. On the transmitter side, it's not coming out. We'll make sure they're reconnected. You know, the internet may have dropped out, and for whatever reason, your codecs never reestablished their connection. So, another thing to connect. So those are some common failures that I've seen with a silent station that is with the audio generation side. Now let's talk about static. And this can take you in a whole different direction. So a static sound on the air, to me, means that the transmitter is off. And there could be a few things that cause that. One of the most common ones, well, you have a power failure at the transmitter site. Okay. If you have a backup generator, find out why the backup generator didn't fire up. If you don't have a backup generator, you're going to have to wait until the power comes back, unless you can get a backup generator there. Another thing is that a lot of transmitters also have a mode where if they don't hear audio for a certain amount of time, that they will turn themselves off. And that's more of a control issue. The FCC requires that you have control over your station, being able to take the station off the air within a certain amount of time. And one way to do that is stop sending audio. The transmitter hears no audio for a certain amount of time and goes, okay, time for me to turn off. So make sure you are sending audio. And if you've checked the studio stuff, then you can be reasonably confident that, yeah, audio is getting to your transmitter side. Having a remote control, again, I can't express how important a remote control is. Having a good remote control that's properly configured will help you understand what is going on at the transmitter side. It could help you turn on a backup system, which could be working. It will give you information and insight as to what is going on. And so having that information is key, is super helpful. And you know, if you ever have to go up to a site because of a failure, knowing why stuff is off, knowing what errors are going on will help you plan for it better, will help you pack better, and will also give you an idea of how long you're going to be out there. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's always a good idea to spend a few minutes, diagram out your air chain from the beginning to the end, so that way you can understand and kind of get a better idea of what all the stages are that you need to check. So that's kind of the basics of troubleshooting your FM station, why it's off the air. There are obviously so many things that can go wrong, that do go wrong, but this will cover 90% of the issues, from silent at the studio to transmitter off the air. This will get you going. Now, if you come across something else that happens, Well, now we start digging into it deeper. Never underestimate the power of tech support. Call the manufacturer, and even if you don't have a support agreement, maybe you could ask some basic questions and you'll have the right tech who will be like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you some things to check, and if that doesn't work, then we'll have to move on. But never hurts to ask. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you for being a part of this channel. I really appreciate you being here. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning.